What's up, y'all? Or how we say in Texas, howdy. Or how we say in Puerto Rico, hola, ¿cómo estás? My name is Dylan Kane, and this is The Developmental Gap. This is a podcast about all things baseball and how you can deepen your language on how to speak this beautiful game. Currently, I work in Brooklyn, New York with Jose Franco, who will be my co-host. And our time there, we've spent talking about how to help players advance their game. See, because not always is it the talent that separates players, but it's going to be their development. I attended a high school in Puerto Rico. My time there, I learned how to fail and how to succeed, how to handle both, how to be a better teammate. And I took those experiences onto the next level where I played college baseball. This podcast is for ages 10 to 18. If you're a player who's looking to level up their game mentally, physically, and spiritually, you're in the right spot. Let's close the gap.
Welcome to Dylan Kane's The Developmental Gap podcast. I am your co-host, Jose Franco. I think the best coachable moment from the WBC that I am going to say maybe 1,000 times is watching a 17-year-old kid pitch to Aaron Judge and get Aaron Judge out. That's the equivalent of the mental part of the game that you have to be indifferent. Aaron Judge is a person that puts on his pants one leg at a time. So I have a travel team, and there's been times that I feel that the kids check out when we play in tournaments, and I am a coach that just wants my kids to play against the strongest competition. So embracing strong competition is something that I seek because there's growth and discomfort. When you're competing against strong teams, you have to learn on the fly. And right now we're experiencing the World Baseball Classic, and it's phenomenal. I'm fortunate that I've seen kids go through the journey from rec, one kid in particular. As a matter of fact, this is a kid that was on the 78th precinct. He now has a podcast, and he's done okay with baseball, interviewing my favorite major leaguer, Harrison Bader.
So earlier you mentioned going down to Florida, playing in the SEC, coming from where we come from, in the Northeast. I know that you were somewhat of a preferred walk-on at the moment when you originally went down there. That takes a lot of conviction in a different kind of way, a lot of self-belief, a lot of inner belief. And I'll be honest with you, even though I was drafted in high school, I did not have that belief at the moment. I used to dream these dreams of the kids in Texas, the kids in Florida, the kids in California. And I thought, geez, there's no way they're not better than what I'm doing. So I had a little bit of doubt in my system. And I'm wondering what it was within you and your support system around you that allowed you to take that leap of faith and take that chance. That obviously worked out. I knew you played for the same coach as me, Jose Franco. I remember when you got called up. I remember facing you in 2017, seeing you with the blazing speed and the defense and the hair.
In many ways, again, going back to this theme of turning something maybe potentially negative into a positive, is that, that actually was our chip on our shoulder. Because when I got down to Florida, or when my team, the New York Rays with Jose Franco, when we got down to Georgia, Florida, wherever, we were just playing in a gym for hours doing drills nonstop. And now we get this beautiful field in the grass, and it's like, it felt like a major league field to us. My parents, they really instilled a level of confidence within me that was probably, looking back, a little more inflated than it should have been. Listen, my dad, I always knew my dad was a huge baseball fan. He always watched baseball nonstop. He had a good eye for it. And, he gave me every ounce of confidence. I could just see it in his eyes when he would tell me that, Harrison, you can play. Just go out there and play your game. We'll be here, call us whenever, but just go out there, keep your head down, and just work and just play. And I think when I knew his baseball knowledge, and I knew when he said that, it made me believe in myself more. But yeah, listen, at the end of the day, I didn't have a choice, Well, what's the choice? I think every athlete is under this assumption that there's a choice. You can wake up and choose to work out. You can choose to go out and perform. And in reality, I think once an athlete realizes that there really is no choice, there's only one decision, that's to go out there and do it, I think you're better off. And I think I just got that at a very young age because, there was no turning back at that point. So I think that, playing from New York, and you can speak to this as well, the weather, all these different factors, they limit our ability to succeed. There's no fields, it's cold, they're unkept. For me, the reason why I'm an outfielder is because New York City infields were so bad, I was literally scared of ground balls. I'd get hit in the face, I get hit in the teeth, and I'm like, I'm done with this. I moved to the outfield. And that happened to me when I was 12 years old, 13 years old. So that's the reason. And that's like the reality of it. I think if you're from New York City in general, you have a superpower anyway, just growing up in that kind of pressure cooker, if you will, of just energy and people and personalities and all these different things. And so yeah, I think, my parents and my support system, Jose Franco, David Owens, both my parents tremendously. They just were my support system to kind of turn that pressure cooker into just pure adrenaline and confidence and just, yeah, and just passion. And I think if you kind of wake up and go to sleep and you do the same thing every day, eventually it becomes second nature. And before you know it, you kind of fast forward and
I think you tapped into it right there. There's something about the chip on your shoulder, the New York attitude, that little bit of FU that we all have in us. I remember going to Boston and just being like, I'm going to be the guy here when I went to college, whatever it takes. You know what I mean? And once you
100%.
get confronted with that fight or flight, it's kind of built in. We've been taught to fight our whole lives, right? And then
Oh,
also
no doubt.
culturally, baseball in New York, you grow up with a lot of Latino culture. You got
Oh,
Dominicans, you
yeah.
got a lot of different flavor all around. To me, that stuff prepares you even more for pro ball than some other guys. Would you speak on that at all?
But yeah, 100%. You absolutely could not be more correct. I mean, all the baseball in New York, like you mentioned, is all Spanish. It's all basically Dominican and Puerto Rican, and there's a certain style of play which, when I was playing at a young age, at 14 years old, I didn't know anything different. But now that it kind of makes full circle and we're in the big leagues playing with all these guys, I mean, it's the same exact style of play. It's the same exact energy. It's the same exact passion. Same exact love for the game. I was surrounded by Puerto Ricans and Dominicans when I was growing up playing baseball. There's one other pitcher. His name is Blaze Skirbo. He's a right-handed pitcher for us. We were the only white dudes on the team, but we did everything just like they did because they were cooler and flashier and they had way more swag and they flowed better on the field and the way they laughed. And it was just a culture that I just loved so much. And they welcomed us so easily and with so much love and with so much open arms.
Continuing with the father's theme, Paul is the parent of a 16-year-old. Son plays for a good baseball program. We sat with him. He had questions about his son. Son has good grades, and he had a conversation with me and Dylan. And after that clip, we were fortunate. I invited Paul back to sit in while I had a conversation with Adam Ottavino's dad, John Ottavino, who is a fixture in the baseball community in Brooklyn. He's been umpiring the last 17 years. He's a screen and stage actor, and he is someone I know close to 30 years. And I asked him if he can be a regular in from the umpiring side. He's meticulous and he's probably the only umpire I talk to in a progressively civil manner. So he's going to be on. Let me just show the clip and stop rambling.
Kid's 16 years old. He's a junior. He plays, in a top 5 New York City public school. Kids are 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They need direction, right? And within that direction comes the natural parts of kids being 14, 15, make choices on their own with guidance with parents. We're in a space right now, which is, the perfect storm.
And what would be the measurables you would say to Paul that he should, if he hasn't honed in, what are the measurables? Someone at 16 and based on his position. So his son's an outfielder. So what should be the measurables, Dylan?
As far as like baseball measurables,
Yes.
I would say, can you move? What do your first 3 steps look like? What are you doing for your strength conditioning program in the sense of speed, especially at 16U? What does your program say that's going to project you at 18U to be faster than you are at 16? And that's identifying, what kind of outfielder he is. If he's someone who is not hitting home runs at 16, that's okay. Maybe we tweak our program to get a little bit where we develop that skill, where we're hitting less doubles, more triples, more home runs. Or if it's someone that that, hey, home runs are never really going to be a part of this person's game, what are you doing offensively to make sure you stay on base, to use your speed, to use your legs? And whether that be dissecting your batting practice approach, because a lot of people will just get in a box, they'll get into the cage and they'll start getting their reps, which is good. But then it's like, what pitch are you looking for? What pitch are you looking for 2-0? What pitch are you looking for 1-2? What are you seeing that the pitcher's doing, and bringing that dialogue into the batting practice session? Because if a guy's fast and he's not going to hit home runs, we got to get him on first base so he can get to second base. And if it is a guy that can hit a double, that's even better. But I think the measurables would be for an outfielder, it always starts with speed to an extent, especially if it's a center fielder. And from there, everything else can be kind of ironed out. But I think speed, being able to make good reads defensively, and then can you get on base?
I know John over 30 years now, so I think it would give the from you coaching with Paul Friedman, we got to give Paul Friedman his due props.
Absolutely.
From you coaching Adam with Paul Friedman to Major League Baseball, give Paul that journey. And then if you don't mind, remember when we were having dinner, the 7 points that I wanted you to go over? 78th precinct, and also we live in Brooklyn, so, and people can relate, Paul's in Brooklyn, so this way they know, not from me.
Well, the first thing that you need to know, or that anyone needs to know about this, is that baseball in Brooklyn years ago, when my son was 10 years old, has no relation. It has nothing in common with baseball in Brooklyn today. What has happened in the last 25 or 30 years in youth sports is a complete and total revolution and change. Back then, perfect game was just beginning. Cooperstown opened, the Cooperstown Dream Park opened when the boys were 9. So the concept of the high elite expensive travel team didn't really exist. What Paul Friedman and I were able to do for $650, between $650 and $850 a year, will now cost somebody $16,000. Wow. First off, we got paid nothing. We completely volunteer. The volunteer spirit has sort of vanished from youth baseball, unfortunately. Secondly, because there were a lot of those people floating around who were really good, who were playing local baseball. So a bar was set that was pretty high. We had a player, Leone Enrique, a Dominican kid. His brother was a real high-level baseball player, and when he showed up, he was terrific. He was head and shoulders above everybody else. And so there was a standard set that the rest of the kids kept trying to get to. Everybody wanted to hit as well as Leone, run as well as Leone, throw as well as Leone. That guy does not show up in recreational baseball anymore or local travel ball anymore because he's gone and he's on some very expensive travel team. Someone else is paying his freight because Leone would never have been able, his family was never going to be able to pay what it would cost today. Paul and I coached my son from the time he was 8 until he was 13. We kept the team together until we could get on the big field. At that point, our boys knew everything we had to tell them. And frankly, they were tired of hearing it from us, and we were tired of saying it to them. And he said, "We need to talk right now." So we went in and talked, and he said the right words to Adam, which is, "You'll start as a freshman," because he did not want to be redshirted. He didn't want to wait. He was also lucky enough to get drafted out of high school. So that gave him a little bit of it was another badge for him. And then he did well at Northeastern. So his junior year, they essentially set up the whole season for him. We got to pitch against Georgia Tech when they were down in their spring training run down. They set him up pitching against very, very, very high-level teams. He did well. They got him to the Cape. In fact, after he got drafted, before he showed up his freshman year, I got a call from one of the coaches saying, "Is your son actually thinking of signing?" And I said, "Well, he wants to sign. I don't want to stop him. What magic words do you have that I can whisper into his ear, get some sense into his 16-year-old or 17-year-old head?" And the coach said, "Tell him if he comes here, we'll get him to the Cape." And I said, "Okay, I'll try that." And as soon as I said Cape Cod League, he was in. So the thought of signing and going to Arizona as a 17-year-old kid and trying to compete with grown men disappeared, which was good. As I didn't think he was psychologically ready or emotionally ready to go and go fight for his dinner. Then he got drafted out of college, and he went in the first round, and he had one heck of a tough time in the minor leagues. They were trying to change him, and he was trying to change, and that was a terrible mistake on both their sides. And then finally, when he was in Double-A, he came home at the All-Star game, and during the All-Star break, and was sitting on the beach with my wife, and he sat up and turned to her and said, "I just figured it out. The heck with him. I'm doing it my way." And then everything changed for the better. Things went real south in between him and St. Louis, and he was finally able to get out of there. He showed up. We didn't know who was going to grab him. They released him the last day of spring training, I think, hoping that no one would grab him because all the rosters would be full, and then they could grab him for free again. But Colorado took him. He went out to their AAA facility in Colorado Springs, introduced himself. The pitching coach said, "Why don't we go out and throw a bullpen?" He said, "Sure." He went out and threw 25 or 30 pitches, and the coach turned to him and said, "I asked you a question." And he said, "Sure." He said, "Do you have his way up to that?" And bang, he gets it. And he's crushing it for a month. And then his arm falls off and he has to have Tommy John. The whole thing just blew up on him. He loses 16 months. He gets back at the end of a season, and he's okay. He comes back the next year, and he's terrible. He can't do anything. He can see his career circling the drain. And all of the women in my life and his life are phoning me and saying, "You got to go out and talk to your son. You got to go out and talk to your son. You got to go fix this." So I call him up and I say, "Listen, I'm coming out to Denver. I'd like to get together and stuff." And, he goes, "Well, you got to wave a magic wand?" And I said, "No, but you know what? I still like you. We can go out. We can tell fart jokes. We can fool around. We can have some fun. And, we'll hang out for a while. What's the problem?" So I go out. And the day I get there, he and BJ were throwing a barbecue for the team. So his wife hands me an apron and says, "You have to grill." So I'm cooking hot dogs and hamburgers and food for the players and their families and the kids. At the end, I help clean up. So we get the whole place cleaned up. And then Adam and I go out for a walk. And I tell him everything that I am seeing. And he's telling me everything that he's feeling. And he could smell in me my fear that this was going to be the end for him. And the last thing he said to me was, "Dad, it's okay. I have a plan." And I went, "Good enough. If you need any help with your plan, you let me know." That's when he came home and built his pitching lab. That was his plan. And that took him from the worst moment of his baseball life to the best moment of his baseball life.
John, what would you say to 11, 12-year-olds playing in 78th precinct, playing for the Bonnies, to parents and the kids going forward as they start their journey? What are the things you would say?
Well, I mean, I can give you what I told you the other day at dinner. I can give you the 7.
What are the 7 things, John? How would you paraphrase these 7 things?
All right. If you want to end up at the top of the heap, you need 7 things to happen for you. 1, you got to win the genetic lottery. I'm 6, at my peak, I was 6'3" and 3/4. I might love horses, but I am never going to be a jockey. Okay? So I don't have the body for it. Now, if you have a baseball body, fine. Find out what baseball body you have. Because a first baseman's body and a right fielder's body and a left fielder's body and a catcher's body may be all different. So make sure that you're working toward that thing that you are suited to best. If you want to be a pitcher and, you don't have the lever arm, the long, lanky lever arm that the great pitchers have, okay, you can try it, but maybe you'd be better off as a catcher. Maybe you'd be better off at third base. I'm not saying you can't play, but you got to find the place that you fit. The second thing is you got to fall in love with the game because it's going to take all of your time. You're going to miss sleepovers. You're going to miss birthday parties. You might miss your prom because I got a game. I got a game. Okay. Third, you need the best coaching you can get as young as you can get it, because it'll keep you from developing bad habits, because bad habits are very hard to break. Develop good habits. In fact, the best line I ever heard on a baseball field. I had just finished practice with this recreational team that someone asked me to help out with. And I'm lugging my gear back toward home across Prospect Park. And a Bonnie team was practicing on field 2. And I heard the coach say, "William, for God's sakes, it's a game of habits. Why are you working so hard to develop bad ones?" And it froze me right there. A game of habits. Wow. I had never thought of it like that. But that's what it is. Because the ball's coming at 105 miles an hour off the bat. How you catch it is going to be habitual. You have no time to think. So you're going to develop good habits. And you're going to continue to develop good habits, because that's what's going to get you through the moment that it's difficult moments in the game. Third, you want to find the best competition you can, because they're going to be very, very helpful in showing you exactly what you're not good at. If you can't hold water, they're going to show you. If you can't hit the ball, they're going to show you.
And fourth,
Yes, fourth, I'm sorry. And they will also be a great source from which you can steal. You see somebody do something. How the heck did that kid do that? I got to figure that out. Wow, that's special. Number 5, it'd be nice to be lucky, but lucky is not necessary. However, bad luck at the wrong moment can derail things. However, since luck is by nature unpredictable and uncontrollable, you got to just get past it, because there's nothing you could do about it. You just move on. Then come the 2 hard. 6 is when the game kicks you in the teeth. And it's not if it does, it's when it does, because it kicks everybody. Sooner or later, you're going to get kicked right in the teeth. Somebody's going to tell you you're not good enough. You're going to have a really bad day the day the college coach of the school you want to go to is watching. Something's going to go wrong. When it happens, you can feel bad for yourself for at least a minute and a half. Then you got to shake the dust off, stand back up, shake your fist at the heavens, say, no, 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 I'm better than that, and dive back in. Which you'll do if you love it. Here's the biggest one. You have to be 1 inch better next week than you were last week. Not a foot, not a yard, not a mile, just 1 little inch. And you don't have to be better every day. Next week, just keep leaning on your weaknesses and working on them, getting rid of them inch by inch, piece by piece. In the martial arts, there's this parable. You have 2 barrels. One is filled with tea. The other one is filled with water. Every day you train, all you did was took 1 eyedropper full of tea and put it in the water barrel. And you're thinking, well, the water barrel is never going to become a tea barrel. After you put the 1,000,000th eyedropper full, you'll discover that that water barrel is a tea barrel. That's how progress is. Every time you're out there, all you've done is you've moved 1 little bean from here to there. But after 10,000 practices, you got 10,000 beans over there. Things worked out for you. You can't judge every minute for what it is, because the path is not right. There's going to be jumps. There's going to be times where you are going backward. Okay. Stop, shut up, keep walking. Just put one, I grew up in a family business, and my grandfather, Italian immigrant, barely spoke the language, came here and started the business. We're stone cutters. My father and my both uncles worked in the business. World War II shows up. All of a sudden, Grandpa's all by himself. So I asked one of the cousins, I said, how the hell did he get through World War II? And she said to me, he just did what he said his whole life. Be quiet and keep going forward. When things get harder, You just keep working. Just shut up and keep working.
Let me ask you something, Dylan. You've played all this baseball. Why do you think our podcast is any different than anything that's out there?
I think something that may make us a little different is that we're both coaches, right? We're both going to be coaching, and we're both actively coaching while we're recording this. I think we're actively living this. So it allows us to kind of talk that we're currently walking. So it'll be, fresh and organic each episode, something that's not, pre-planned. It's something that we're putting into words as we experience it, within probably 24 to 48 hours. I would say that that's one thing that's going to make it a little bit different. And two, it's going to be honest. We're not really choosing sides. We don't have bias in this. We're keeping it in the heart of development. And that can be someone that's brand new to baseball or somebody who's well on their way to playing college baseball and trying to meet them where they're at mentally first and then physically as well.
I think that's part of my appeal to doing this. I mean, speaking to you, we're from different places. You're from Texas. I'm a New York kid. I played baseball in the Bronx. I played for DeWitt Clinton High School. And when I played at Clinton, I would travel down to play in Brooklyn. I played for an organization called Youth Service. And my coach was the infamous Mel Zitter. And playing for Mel, you wear that like a badge. The reason I would travel from the Bronx to Brooklyn is that Sean Dunston was the #1 draft pick, and he got drafted out of Youth Service. Then I was a walk-on at Iona College. I played there, but then as a player, I was hit. So when I played, my best accolade my senior year, I hit 630, but my time in the 60 was a 7.2. So for parents that don't know what that's like, so if you take an Igloo cooler and you roll it down a hill, it'll probably be better than a 7.2. So my time was a 7.2. So I was early on, I knew that I didn't have the tools for the measurables because the travel organization where I played, there was kids that got drafted in the first round, second round, and whatnot. So I saw that, and I've always been somewhat of an autodidact, and working and putting in the effort, I knew that it wasn't going to happen for me, but that didn't dissuade me from falling in love with the game. I kept playing. After business school, I coached at Youth Service. I was fortunate to meet some high school coaches at Youth Service, and I began coaching through that. I also coached in a high school in the Bronx, won a city championship, and it was my baseball evolution. If I look back, the coach I was when I first started to the coach I was 5 years in, to the coach I was 10 years in, to the coach I was 15 years, there's different iterations. I evolved. I witnessed all this baseball in New York. I've seen how the baseball's changed, but I also noticed the common threads, the common stories that a lot of the times it's the same drama, just repackaged. I've never made any real money with baseball, but I don't know of any time that I'm doing that makes me as happy. And when I do baseball, I never look at my watch. You can look at my Instagram profile if you want to do a deep dive, the kind of stuff that I believe in. That's what baseball is to me. One of the joys that I'm having since I've been working with you, I see that you have that same kind of love. Like, yes, we got bills to pay, but if money wasn't an issue, we wouldn't be looking at our watch because we can be here all day. We can do this all day. For the people that don't know you, you being from Texas, what's your love for the game?
I can answer that question a million different ways based off whatever memories come to mind and where you ask me that here in New York City, I have one answer, but if you ask me it in Texas or Puerto Rico, maybe the same answer, just delivered a little bit differently. I wanted to first, before I answer, kind of make an observation that you had this cyclist where you were traveling from the Bronx to Brooklyn in Youth Service as a player, and then after college comes back and did the same thing back into Youth Service as a coach. And I think that that's something about this game that sometimes we're not as aware of it while it's happening. but we always kind of get another at bat, I guess is kind of what that feels like. You always get another opportunity. I resonate with because it's similar that for baseball, for me in Texas, it was a way to make friends. It was a way for me to stay involved in my community. The ability to travel gave me opportunity to travel. And Texas is a really big state. I was born in a part of the state that's a smaller town, but through baseball, I was able to travel to bigger cities like Houston, Dallas, and Austin, and all over, the state of Texas and the suburbs of these bigger cities. I guess I had a love for travel. I had a love to compete with players that were better than me, and that allowed me to do that. So that's probably the best way to answer it in the state of Texas. And that blossomed into traveling around the United States, where I was recruited to play in Puerto Rico. And my love for the game kind of multiplied there because it was a different game in the Caribbean than it was in the state of Texas and even in the United States.
What do you mean a different game?
It was, I'm from Texas, so in Texas, sports are a big deal. Every Friday night, football is a big part of the culture there. They make movies about it. They make TV shows about it. And in the Caribbean, and you're Dominican, so you get it too. It's Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban.
Both.
So you get what I'm saying. It's what Texas and football is, and sports in general. For baseball in the Caribbean, it's that. It's the first time I went down there, I was 14 years old, and I was playing with players that were much better than me, and it was a louder game. And baseball's already a very noisy game in between the ears. But for players to be able to navigate both the noise in their head and the noise of what that is in Puerto Rico was intriguing of how to cope and how to deliver in those situations. And, the first time I hit a single in Puerto Rico, it was a much different feeling than hitting a single in Houston, Texas or something, just because of the sounds of the stadium. It was like a family reunion. We sat and we ate with the other team, and we shared dialogue, we shared fellowship, and that's something. And then we're about to go compete against each other. And then we're going to come back and shake each other's hand. And I think that was kind of eye-opening to me as a teenager to see, like, this is more than a game down here too. This is a way of life. I had many mentors and players that were playing in the major leagues that would kind of echo that. And then to go see them come play in the United States for different teams across the United States, it was like, oh, okay, but they learned how to do that here. So my love for the game kind of, multiplied there. And I wanted to bring that back to the United States with me. And I did as best I could through college and the work ethic that just to get on the field in Puerto Rico was very difficult. You're up early mornings and you're either doing baseball or your schoolwork throughout the day. And then you have the end of the day or that game to show that work that you put in throughout the day. It taught me a lot about discipline and time management and how to take care of my body. And I think that, like you said, baseball is life. These are things that you have to juggle in everyday life. Is time management. You have places to be. You have relationships to communicate. You have to be disciplined with your body and your time and how you choose to spend it to be the best version of yourself.
Things that gravitated me to you was the AD that hired both of us. He told me, Dylan's an actor. I'm married 27 years. What better way to practice acting? You need to be an actor to stay married so long. Trust me when I tell you, especially if your wife's smarter than you. But how does baseball spill into your acting? Is there any synergy with what you learn in baseball into what you're doing with your acting?
Absolutely. Every actor has their own process. It's always changing depending on what it is you're doing. It's the same for baseball. Your routine is your routine, but you're tweaking it here and there, depending on if it's a game day or if you're just practicing or what type of season it is. Like right now, we're in still the late stages of preseason here in New York, whereas in Texas, I have, family and friends who are very much into their season already. So it depends on your processes, where you're at in your season and how you organize your time. But as far as like with acting and baseball, I've been a storyteller as long as I could remember. Like being on the baseball field was sometimes just a stage to perform. I'm sure a lot of kids would resonate with this. When things went well, it was fun. When you played well, you had an audience that you're performing for and it felt good. Whereas times when you went over 3 strikeouts, didn't feel so good. Your performance kind of be the equivalent of running over a line or hitting your mark, missing your mark or something like that. But even at practice, like I got my work in, I was a hard worker, but I like to keep it light. And that's why I think we work well together. We crack jokes. We have a good time. We like to keep the energy relaxed. And as a baseball player, as you know, the more relaxed you are, the more available you are to the game, the more available you are to your teammates, to your coaches. And whereas if you're not and you're in your head, you might say something to a teammate that is wrong. You just miscommunicate. I don't want to say wrong. You just miscommunicate. And too much miscommunication throughout a 7 or 9 inning game, as you know, can usually dictate how one game goes versus the other. If you're communicating well and you get beat, we can live with that. If you're communicating bad and you get beat, those losses stick with you a little bit longer. So I think back to being an actor and a baseball player, it was something that always allowed me to kind of just have a good time. I was always imitating a character or some scene in a movie that I just watched. We're in the middle of live batting practice. And after I get my reps, I would be quoting that film or, did you see this? And everyone sometimes would be like, no, I didn't see that. And I'm like, oh man, you got to check it out. This is the way it went. And then I would just go into the bit. But some of my favorite memories in high school, every Wednesday, we went to the cinema. And it was great because we played baseball every day. Every single day we played, always up to like 5, 6, sometimes, 6 games a day. We play a doubleheader in the morning, doubleheader in the middle of the day. And sometimes we'd have a doubleheader at night. But on Wednesday, we always could go to the cinema. And, those are some of my favorite memories, even as a high schooler in Puerto Rico, was going to the cinema, eating some popcorn, having a Coca-Cola, and just relaxing, watching a movie. So it allows me to stay creative. Baseball allows me to itch that creative bone. And then as I'm coaching, a lot of times I kind of let the team or whoever I'm working with kind of tell me what they need. And it's kind of like being in a scene, your scene partner and you are kind of working together, and they kind of tell you what they need from you, and you give them that. And that usually is what keeps the life of the scene. It's similar to that when I'm working. I like to do a lot of show. As you know, you've seen me coach, it's very much, I'm going to not just tell you about it, but I would like to show you in my version. And then like how you want to do that with your body, that's your journey. So yeah, I see a lot of them. A lot of times it's always coming through together, acting and baseball for me. As a performer, as an actor, your body is your instrument. And as a baseball player, your body is your instrument, how you make adjustments. It's the same. So there's a lot of synchrony there.